Good evening, guys. Welcome to video notes number 3. And yes, this time it is video notes number 3. Today we'll be solving literal equations and inequalities. We will solve for the given variable when there are two or more variables in the equation or inequality. Your essential question: what are some similarities and differences between solving a regular equation and solving for a given variable? Okay. So we got some vocabulary. Literal equations is an equation where variables represent known values. Literal equations allow us use to represent things like distance, time, interest, and slope as variables and in an equation. Feel free to pause, guys, if you need to. All right, let's get started with example number 1. We're going to solve for x. So this is a very basic equation, but I wanted to start basic, okay? So we have x minus 5 equals 12. So we have x minus 5 equals 12. So if we were to solve for x, you know that you must do the inverse of negative 5, which is to add 5 to both sides, right? And you're like, yes. All right, so x equals, and that will cancel, and x equals 17, right? Okay, so that's what we've been doing for the last couple of days, right? All right, so very basic, right? All right, so let's go over here. Notice now I have two variables. I have a y and an x. Now, over here the directions were solve for x. Over here it was solve for y, okay? So we want y to be by itself, just like x was by itself. Over here, we got rid of the 5 by doing the inverse. So since we want y by itself, we will need to get rid of this x. So just like the equation we just solved, to get rid of this x, I am going to add x. Okay? Now, typically we would put it underneath the 12, like this 5. However, this is a variable, so I'm going to put it out to the side, okay? So out to the side, because not like terms, okay? So then this will cancel. So then we bring down everybody and we get y equals 12 plus x. Nothing else can be done. This is your answer. Okay, so this is what we call a literal equation. Okay, we literally solved for y, okay, in terms of y. We do not add x to this 12 because they're not like terms. All right, that's it. So let's go to example 2. So here is a two-step equation. This is what we've been doing. So I am going to quickly go through the steps. Okay, we have been adding 7 to both sides to cancel the 7s. Okay, we bring down our information. We have 3x greater than 15. And then our last step would be to divide by 3 because this x is being multiplied by 3. So we divide both sides by 3. And then this time we end up with x is greater than 5. So that's what we've been doing here lately. Okay, so now let's take a look over here. As you can see, we're going to solve for the letter y. When I say solve for the letter y, we want it to be just like this, where we just want the letter y on the left-hand side instead of just an x. So I replaced the 7 with x. Notice again that we added 7 to both sides. So we're going to repeat the same steps. So I'm going to add x, because we don't want it there. And then this time, instead of putting it under here, we're going to put it off to the side. And again, off to the side, because not like terms. All right, so then we get 3y is greater than 18 plus x. Okay, now what did we do over here? And when it was multiplied by 3, we divided by 3. So we're going to do the same thing. Now it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to divide this by 3, divide the 18 by 3, and divide the x by 3. Okay? So this will result with y greater than. Then ask yourself, what is 18 divided by 3? And the answer is 6. And then can we divide x by 3? And the answer is no. So we just write x divided by 3. Okay? So we have solved for y. Okay? So again, if you can't see this, I'm sorry guys. This is y greater than 6 plus x divided by 3. Okay? All right, that was the answer that you have right there. All right, so again, we're doing almost the same steps, except instead of a number, now we're using another letter. All right, let's look at example 3. Example 3 has some distribution. Okay, remember to distribute means to multiply. So we're going to multiply 3 times 3 is 9x. 3 times 2 is negative 6. And then greater than 24. And then from here we'll proceed with the same steps as before. The inverse of negative 6 is to add 6 to both sides. And then we get 9x greater than 30. Okay, and then our last step, because this is multiplying by 9, the inverse would be to divide both sides by 9. And as you probably realize, oh, the answer is a decimal. 30 divided by 9 is 3.33 repeating. And there's our work. So again, this is what we've been doing. We distributed. We got rid of the constant by doing the inverse. Both of these are constants, so they line up. We multiply by 9, so that means we divide by 9, and there's our answer. So how does that look like when we solve for y here? All right, so here we go. The steps are still the same. We are still going to distribute. We're going to have 3 times 3, which is 9x. We're going to have 3 times 2, which gives us 6y. And then we're going to have greater than 24. So again, we distributed just like on the left side. Now we're solving for y, so we want y by itself. So that means we get rid of the 9x. So to get rid of the 9x, we're going to subtract 9x because 9 minus 9 is 0. Now we'll place it off to the side again because it's not like terms. And so we end up with negative 6y greater than 24 minus 9x. All right, so then our next step, just like here, to get rid of this 9, we divided by 9. So we'll divide each term by negative 6. Okay, now hopefully you remember the little rule that if you divide by a negative, the inequality symbol will switch directions. So it's going to be y less than 24 divided by negative 6 is negative 4. And then 9 and 6 don't quite divide, but they do reduce. 9, 6, I'm doing a little side note over here. 9, 6, both of these can be divided by 3, right? That's in common. So 9, 6 will become 3 halves. So remember, we reduce. Do you remember doing that? So we're going to reduce the fraction. And then since they're both negative, they will become positive. Okay? So this is going to be positive 3 halves x. And we'll leave it as is. Okay? All right. Let's go to example 4. Example 4 is definitely all kinds of letters. So we have a equals the base times the height divided by 2. If you recognize this is the formula for area of a triangle. It says solve for b. So here are some hints. I'm going to box in the b because that's what we want to be by itself. The h is multiplying. Okay, h is multiplying. And the 2 is dividing. Okay, so we're going to do the inverse of those things. So again, we're going to start with the division of 2. So the inverse, the opposite of that, is to multiply by 2. So we're going to multiply by 2 on both sides. When I multiply by 2, remember this would cancel this out. So we'd be left with 2a equals bh. Okay? All right, so now again, we said h is multiplying. So the inverse of that is to divide by h. So let's divide both sides by h. So we're going to divide this by h and this by h. And then these h's will cancel. So now we're left with base equals 2a over h. And this would be your answer. Or you could write it b equals 2a over h. Alright, I know it's probably a little bit confusing, but we'll practice some more in class. Alright, so here's another one. Solve for m. Okay, so if you notice, m is also on the right hand side, and we would want it on the left hand. So one of the things that I've taught you to do is you have the option to, let's put y on the other side. Okay, so one of the things is that x is multiplying, right? X is multiplying the m, and the b is adding. Okay, so the inverse of these things is to, we're going to subtract b. Okay, so let's subtract b, and I'm going to put it on the side because they are not like terms. So again, remember I've been saying on the side because not like terms. So these cancel, and we're left with mx equals y minus b. The next thing is that we need to notice that this x is multiplying the m. So the inverse of that is to divide by x. So we're going to divide every single term by x. So m is equal to y divided by x minus b divided by x. Now there is another way to write this. Since they both have a denominator of x, okay, we can divide both of them. Okay, one moment. All right, or we can, since they both have the same denominator of x, we could also write it like this: y minus b all over x. So there's two ways to represent the same thing. All right, guys, so I know it's a little confusing, but give these a try. Follow the steps by steps. Okay, all I want you to do is attempt it, try it. If you get it, great. If not, it's okay. So make sure to answer your summary. It is worth 30 points. All right, that's it. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.